Why? Why are you here?
Do you want to know? Well, that's because my name is Heather. I'm a 30-year-old woman working as an engineer for a certain manufacturer. I married my husband, Christopher, 3 years ago. We are a dual-income couple with no children yet. Someday, I want to have children and take maternity and parental leave while continuing my current job. However, the future I envisioned was suddenly shattered. I got into an accident on my way home from work. On this day, Christopher was on a long-term business trip overseas, so my parents rushed to the hospital to handle the admission procedures and everything. My parents quickly informed Christopher about the accident, but after hearing the doctor's explanation, I decided to contact Christopher myself. Hey, Christopher. I'm sorry, I must have surprised you this time.
Really? I was shocked. I can't rush back immediately. How's your body? Are you okay, Heather? I've informed my company, and I'll return in 3 days.
I could sense Christopher's concern over the phone. So I said this. Well, it seems I've been left with a paralysis on one side of my body due to the accident.
What? Paralysis on one side of your body? Will it get better with rehab?
No, it seems it won't get better anymore.
No way.
Christopher fell silent, shocked by my words. I then mustered the courage to tell him my decision. So, I don't want to burden you, Christopher. Your hobbies are outdoor activities and attending festivals, right? If we stay together, you won't be able to enjoy those things anymore. So, let's get a divorce. Christopher didn't respond immediately to my words. If you were told you'd have a lifetime paralysis, you'd be confused too. Moreover, being suddenly asked for a divorce might leave you in a state of shock. However, after a few minutes, he quietly said this. Okay. If you say so, Heather. You're stubborn, and once you've decided something, you don't change your mind. Yes. Thank you for understanding. After Christopher agreed to the divorce, we ended the call. Then, we switched to texting each other. I told him I'd ask my parents to place the divorce papers in our living room by tomorrow. I also mentioned that we would decide on the distribution of property and other details after I get discharged from the hospital. Of course, I also asked him not to visit me at the hospital. Seeing Christopher's face any longer was too painful for me. Honestly, even though I was the one who brought up the divorce, I was a bit shocked at how quickly he agreed. But Christopher has his own life. And I have my own life too. There's no time to be depressed. I have to start moving toward the next phase of my life immediately. As I said, I asked my parents to get the divorce papers and fill them out. Then, I told them to place them in the living room. 3 days later, Christopher seemed to have returned as scheduled. He went to our home and submitted the divorce papers. I just came back from the office. I see.
Yeah. Take care, Heather.
You too, Christopher. He called me after returning from the office. With this brief conversation, our 3 years of marriage ended. A week after that call, I was waiting for someone in the lobby of the city hall.
Hey, this way. Hurry up. Well, calm down, Amy. We still have plenty of time before they close the reception.
A couple hurriedly approached the counter at the city hall. I stood in front of them, smiling warmly.
Long time no see, Christopher. And nice to meet you, Amy.
Who are you? And how do you know my name? Are you some kind of stalker? Amy, meeting me for the first time, looked at me suspiciously. But the man, Christopher, stared at me with a pale face.
Heather, What are you doing here? And why are you standing?
Christopher looked at me with a face full of shock. And rightfully so. The woman who wasn't supposed to be able to move was standing firmly on her own feet without crutches or anything. It had only been about a week since we separated because of my supposed paralysis, so his confusion was understandable.
Is it that surprising to see me standing?
Why?
Well, you said you were paralyzed on one side of your body. And that's why you wanted a divorce, so I held back my tears and agreed.
Christopher spoke as if he were the one who had been abandoned, but I corrected him calmly.
What are you talking about? Holding back your tears? When I asked for the divorce, you agreed right away. That's because, Heather, when you make up your mind, you don't change it. And now, just days after our divorce, you're here with a marriage certificate. Is that what someone who held back tears would do? This is.
Christopher hastily hid the marriage certificate he was holding behind his back. But it was too late.
Hey, who is this woman? Why is she talking to you so familiarly?
Amy, the only one still not understanding the situation, spoke up with dissatisfaction. So I decided to explain everything to them.
Amy, nice to meet you. I'm Christopher's ex-wife, Heather. What, you are? You're the former wife who ignored and looked down on Christopher. I've heard him complain about you so many times. And you just dumped him unilaterally. I can't forgive someone like you.
Apparently, Christopher had been telling her all sorts of things about me while we were still married. Hearing her outburst, Christopher looked flustered.
Hey, Amy, don't say things like that. And Heather, you need to explain why you said you were paralyzed on one side of your body and now you're standing.
Well, actually, I wasn't involved in a major accident. There was a big accident near me, and I fell in shock and sprained my ankle. It was such a minor injury that I felt bad about even being in the hospital.
What? So you lied about being paralyzed? Just to get a divorce?
When I explained the truth, Christopher, ignoring his own actions, blamed me.
Did you want to divorce me so badly that you lied about it? Does that mean, were you having an affair?
Isn't that you, Christopher? Trying to remarry just days after our divorce is proof enough.
No, that's not it. I just met Amy a few days ago, and it was like a fateful encounter. We felt so connected that we decided to get married without dating first.
He tried to defend himself, insisting he wasn't cheating. However, Amy wasn't going to stay silent at his excuse. Glaring at him, Amy started to argue back.
How can you say that? Christopher and I have been a loving couple for over a year. Even when Heather was causing him so much pain, I was there supporting him. Don't act like our relationship is something to be hidden. Amy, stop it. Do you want to get sued for damages? I don't want that, but I also don't want you lying about me.
Christopher put his head in his hands at her selfish remarks. It seemed he realized there was no way to cover up the affair. Dropping the pathetic excuses, he returned to the main issue. Yes, I did have an affair with Amy. But that doesn't mean I can forgive you for lying. Why did you lie about having hemiplegia? It wasn't a lie. I fell during the accident. And this prototype got broken. Saying this, I took out the mechanical doll from my bag. This was a mechanical doll I had been developing since I joined the company, and I had finally completed the prototype recently. When I brought it home to work on it, I got caught in an accident and the doll's half side stopped moving. This doll has hemiplegia. Of course, rehabilitation won't fix it. I'll be busy repairing it for a while, and I won't be able to join you on outdoor activities or festivals you love. That's why I said we should break up.
That's sophistry. I don't believe it. You must have been cheating on me in secret. And you lied about the accident to divorce me because you were afraid of paying compensation when the affair was revealed. Isn't that right?
Indeed, I lied about having hemiplegia. But it wasn't to cover up my affair and divorce you. I knew you wouldn't agree to the divorce, so I wanted to find any way to separate.
Why would I not agree to the divorce?
My statement must have hit the mark. Christopher's face turned red as he denied it, but he looked unconvincing. I took out evidence and showed it clearly to Christopher and Amy. Look at this. These are his and my pay slips since we got married. From these, it's clear he can't live on his own. Someone like that wouldn't agree to divorce someone with a high income like me easily.
Stop it, that's...
Christopher hastily tried to hide the documents I presented. But Amy spoke up a moment faster.
Hey, what is this? Christopher, you always boasted about having a high income and getting executive bonuses. That's why we always had luxurious dates and nice presents. Was all that a lie? Were you using Heather's salary for yourself? And Heather, not working or doing housework and looking down on you was a lie too. No, that's not it. Yes, my salary is low, but with both our salaries. Sure, I might have exaggerated a bit. But a little embellishment in a story is normal, right? So, I can't believe this. I was about to marry you based on a lie. Let me tell you, without money, you're worthless to me. Let's break up. This is unbelievable. Amy!
Right in front of me, Christopher got dumped miserably. That calmed me a bit, but it wasn't enough. Well, you tricked me into thinking you were rich, so it's your own fault. But, Christopher, this isn't the end of your punishment.
What do you mean? I just got dumped. Heather, you're my ex-wife. Can't you show a little sympathy?
Ignoring Christopher's selfish whining, I grabbed Amy, who was trying to leave, and called the lawyer who had been waiting nearby.
Who the hell is that guy? Oh, I get it. You're her affair partner, aren't you?
No, there's no issue here. I am Heather's attorney.
What? Why the hell does a lawyer need to talk to me?
Christopher asked irritably, but the lawyer remained completely calm as he began to explain. You had an affair with Amy while you were still married to Heather. Therefore, you are required to pay Heather compensation. With that, the lawyer turned to Amy, who looked annoyed as she was held by the arm. And Amy, you knowingly had an affair with Christopher, who was a married man. Therefore, you are also required to pay compensation.
Why? All I did was lie about not having money. I was deceived into thinking he was wealthy, too. Why should I have to pay compensation?
Both of them tried to claim they had no obligation to pay compensation for their selfish reasons, but of course, that wouldn't fly. Both of them knew about my existence and still enjoyed their affair. No matter what they said, I had no intention of dropping the compensation claim. After being explained by the lawyer, Amy reluctantly signed various agreements. However, Christopher pathetically continued to struggle and then said something outrageous.
Well then, I'll pay the compensation, but Heather, let's get remarried. That way, you can pay for all the living expenses and entertainment like before. Then I can use my entire salary to pay the compensation quickly. What? Are you seriously suggesting that? Why should I remarry a man who cheated on me and then tried to abandon me when he found out his wife had partial paralysis? What's the big deal? I won't cheat anymore, and you're fine now, aren't you? Even if I'm busy with work and can't go camping or to festivals, I won't complain. So let's get back together. Come on. Come on.
What kind of thought process is that? If he had a mechanical body, I'd want to unscrew his head and replace his brain.
As expected, a man who would cheat and lie is completely unreasonable. Unfortunately, I have no intention of thinking on the same level as you. Getting back together is absolutely out of the question, so don't get any weird ideas.
No matter what he said, getting back together with Christopher was impossible. He was a man who cheated and tried to abandon me. Of course, both my parents and his parents knew about this incident and were fully supportive of me. So there was no one on his side. When I said this, he seemed to realize that reconciliation was impossible. Still, he wasn't satisfied with having to pay compensation. He said something even more absurd.
I admit I have to pay compensation. But Heather, you have to pay compensation too.
Why? I didn't want to keep listening to his nonsense, but I replied anyway. Then, with a smug look on his face, he said,
Because you were cheating too, right? And you lied about having partial paralysis to get a divorce. That lawyer just said he wasn't your affair partner. That means you're still cheating with someone. I'll find out who it is and claim compensation. Get ready.
Sigh. Fine. If you're so insistent, go ahead and investigate as much as you like. Not only can you look into it yourself, but feel free to hire a private detective or an investigation firm. Use your own money and do whatever it takes to satisfy yourself.
You can act all calm and collected now, Heather, but that won't last. It's too late to apologize later. I don't need any private detective or investigation firm. I'll find proof of your affair myself.
Christopher declared this and then left, laughing maniacally. After that, he must have actually investigated me. There were several times when I felt like I was being followed when I went to work, and my parents said they saw him around their house. But since I wasn't cheating in the first place, there was no way Christopher could find the kind of evidence he was hoping for. And to my astonishment, he had apparently even skipped work without permission to spy on me. 2 weeks later, he called me, crying,
Heather, when are you going to show me proof of your affair? I've been skipping work without permission, and now they're telling me they're going to fire me. Take responsibility and give me some money to live on.
What are you talking about?
It was your decision to lurk around without taking paid leave, wasn't it? Don't blame others for your actions. So, did you find any proof of this supposed affair? If you haven't, then I'm going to start suing you for stalking. Amy already paid me compensation, but you're the only one dragging this out. Ugh, ugh.
Of course, I hadn't done anything, so there was no way any evidence of an affair would be found. After conducting his investigation, Christopher must have realized this. Reluctantly, he finally agreed to pay the compensation. After that, he was fired from his previous job, but he managed to find another job. He is diligently paying me compensation from his new job's salary every month. However, it seems that he was in such a hurry that he ended up in a terrible company. Apparently, it's a notorious company, and he is being harshly scolded by his bosses and colleagues every day and working late into the night.
Heather, please help me. I can't stand this life. I'll never cheat again, so please remarry me. I want to live lavishly with your money and eat the meals you cook. When I go back home, my parents treat me coldly, and I have no one but you.
One time, he called me with such complaints. But no matter how much he said he had no one but me, I had no feelings for him anymore. As long as he continues to send me the compensation money every month, that's all that matters. I continued to ignore his messages. Eventually, he stopped contacting me. After one large payment, I have no idea what happened to him. Friends gossip that he's been hospitalized due to overwork or is involved in some shady business, but I don't know the truth, nor do I care. Now, I've completely forgotten about Christopher and am fully dedicated to my work. I'm working on a new prototype of the mechanical doll and experimenting with various things. By this time next year, I'm sure this mechanical doll will be on the market. I live each day looking forward to that day. Our daughter Ashley's delivery went smoothly, and we had just returned home that day. Right then, a gift arrived from Ashley's husband, Henry, who couldn't be there for the birth due to work commitments. Though they had been in touch, Ashley clearly missed Henry and eagerly received the package, delighted.
Everyone, please enjoy this. I wonder what he sent. Knowing Henry, it must be something I love.
Ashley opened the package with pure joy. However, her joy quickly faded as her complexion turned pale upon opening it. As Ashley suddenly fell silent, we all peered into the package. Inside was just a dirty rag. And within, a note simply stating, "Don't come back." What is this? What does it mean?
What's this about? Did Henry really send us this?
In stark contrast to our shock, my husband, Kevin, visibly angry, threw the rag to the floor. It must be some mistake. It had to be. Surely, this is some kind of mistake. Should we contact Henry? I gently asked the clearly distraught Ashley, who had become silent and looked down, saying nothing more. This was too much for Ashley, who had just gone through childbirth. I couldn't bear to see her so exhausted and upset. But then, an unexpected turn of events was about to unfold. Kevin came home from work earlier than usual, with a somewhat relieved expression. Before I could ask what happened, Kevin spoke. With a deep breath, he grimaced, bit his lip in frustration, and then announced,
"It appears that was meant as a warning.
My name is Heather. I'm a 57-year-old and I'm supporting my fate as a housewife. Growing up, I was always looking up to my dad, an elite banker. During my school years, I had to be at the top of my class, or Dad would scold me, so my days were filled with nothing but study. Lacking time to play with friends, I led a solitary life at school. Thus, I enrolled in a prestigious university, as Dad suggested. If my grades fell, Dad would threaten not to pay my tuition. However, as I was preparing to find a job, Dad passed away in a car accident. The sudden loss left me utterly lost. Mom grieved daily over Dad's sudden absence. To reassure her, I took a job at a bank. Though Dad was strict, I realized that it was thanks to him I had been so dedicated to my studies. Grateful for this, I was happy to work at the bank, and Mom was overjoyed that I followed in Dad's footsteps. That's where I met someone. Most of my colleagues quickly married and left the job. In our 20s, only women with no desire to marry or those like me, completely dedicated to their work, remained. The bank was a busy place, making it hard to blend in with others around. Even though I was capable at my job, my inability to marry was mocked by my boss. Still, I diligently applied what I had studied in college to my work. Then, one day, after years of this routine, I was introduced to a man by my boss. That man was my husband, Kevin. In the company, he was known as a competent worker, trusted by our boss, and beloved by his colleagues. Being introduced to Kevin, who was cheerful and good-natured, took me by surprise initially. Though we had worked together on several occasions, our interactions had been limited to work-related conversations. The idea of going on a date with him was beyond my expectations. Yet, I found myself accepting his invitation to dine out. Kevin, with his constant SE, turned out to be a very kind and considerate person. Soon after, our relationship progressed swiftly towards marriage. I felt confident that with him, we could build a happy family. Kevin was indeed a wonderful person. Once we decided to marry, we bought a house and embarked on a new life together. Thanks to Kevin's stable income, I left my job to become a housewife. Both of us wanted children eventually. However, reality proved to be harsh, and despite the passage of time, we remained childless. 3 years into our marriage, I was diagnosed with a condition that made it difficult to conceive. The thought that I was the reason we couldn't have children was devastating. But Kevin was there to encourage me, insisting we face the challenge together. With his support, I began fertility treatments. Years passed without success, but finally, after 5 years, our long-awaited wish was granted, and I became pregnant. We were overjoyed at the news of our forthcoming child. Months passed and I gave birth to our beloved daughter. Kevin adored her even more than I did. Once Ashley was born, Kevin made it a point to leave work early, skipping company dinners to come home. Raised with our undivided love, Ashley grew into a very kind child. She was earnest and kind, always sing, just like Kevin. Time flew, and before we knew it, Ashley was a college student. Supporting her desire to help others, we encouraged her as she pursued her studies with enthusiasm. As graduation approached, Ashley expressed her wish to work in the city. While I supported her, Kevin found the idea of her moving away difficult to accept. It's natural for parents to worry about their children. But we encouraged her and Ashley moved to the city. Busy with her job, she seldom returned home, which initially left us feeling lonely. However, we wholeheartedly supported Ashley's dreams. Years went by, and Ashley, now 29, had apparently been promoted at work. Lately, my only joy has been our monthly calls with Ashley.
Mom, thanks for always sending packages.
It's no problem. How's work going? Are you keeping well? Everything okay? Ashley would always laugh off my worries, seeming a bit troubled by my concern.
Mom, you worry too much. I'm 29 now. You don't need to worry so much.
But I hardly get to see you, Ashley. It's natural for a parent to worry. Worrying was, after all, a natural thing.
But you don't need to worry about me anymore.
Despite my concerns, Ashley's voice was full of excitement. What could she mean? Then, taking a deep breath as if bracing herself, Ashley said,
I have someone I want you and Dad to meet.
I couldn't hide my surprise at Ashley's words, as she had never introduced us to anyone before. Who is it? Tell me.
It's a secret until we meet.
Ashley, laughing childishly, sounded a bit excited as she hung up. A few days later, Ashley brought a tall man in a suit to meet us. I was surprised, but Kevin, who adores Ashley, was even more so. The idea of Ashley bringing home a boyfriend seemed to shock him. I never thought she'd actually bring someone home. She used to say she'd marry me when she was little. Ashley is an adult. It's not strange for her to have a boyfriend. Despite my efforts to reassure Kevin, accepting the reality of his beloved Ashley having a boyfriend was hard for him. Sitting close to the man, Ashley introduced him with a happy essay.
This is Henry. He works in landscaping.
I'm Henry. I'm in a committed relationship with Ashley. It's a pleasure to meet you. Henry seemed sincere and serious, and although Kevin was initially wary, they gradually warmed up to each other. Henry grew up in a home without a father after his parents divorced. He had difficulty fitting in and finding opportunities to meet people due to his busy work life. But then he met Ashley. They were introduced by a mutual acquaintance and recently started dating. Ashley was there for Henry, offering support and kindness during tough times at work. With Ashley's support, Henry found himself more engaged in his work than ever before. All thanks to Ashley. She's my savior. Hearing Henry speak so fondly, I was on the verge of tears as a parent. To think that he cherished Ashley so much. Kevin was moved by Henry's words too, and the two of them became close enough to chat about trivial matters. I was convinced that Henry was someone we could entrust our precious Ashley to. The impression of Henry was that good. I was sure that a marriage proposal was on the horizon. Ashley and Henry seemed to trust each other that much. But then, about 6 months later, something unimaginable happened. As usual, I had sent Kevin off to work and was dedicating myself to household chores. When suddenly, my mobile phone rang. Picking up, curious, it was Ashley. A wave of anxiety washed over me, wondering what could have happened.
Ashley, what's up? Calling in the middle of the day like this?
Normally, she would be at work at this time. Yet, Ashley, with a voice not her usual bright self but somewhat darker, said, "I took some leave."
Took leave? Are you not feeling well? What happened?
Ashley seemed hesitant to talk. Well, there's something I need to talk about. Usually, she would be bright and talk about Henry or her job. But today, her voice was devoid of cheer, sounding somewhat listless. Ashley started talking about something that seemed to be troubling her. Apparently, things weren't going well with Henry's mom.
What do you mean? Didn't you say you went out to eat with her before?
There hadn't been such issues when they first started dating. I had heard they were getting along well with Henry's mom. Yet, what could have happened in just 6 months? I asked Ashley what went wrong. The truth is, things have never really been good with Henry's mom. She had been trying not to worry us. I wished she had talked to us sooner. But maybe Ashley found it difficult to consult us. Gently asking what happened, Ashley let out a small sigh.
Recently, Henry and I discussed about marriage. Considering our ages, it was time for us to think, she said.
I suddenly remembered a call from Ashley a few days ago. She had mentioned then that they were talking about their future. But at that time, her voice was brighter, and she seemed happy talking about it. But it seems that wasn't the case in reality. Ashley mentioned that Henry's mom, Nicole, was being harsh towards her. She had visited Nicole's house several times, but each time she was met with a cold attitude from Nicole. Why would she act like that? Ashley pondered over this and even discussed it with Henry. Henry suggested that Nicole might still be traumatized from when Henry's dad had an affair and left the home during his childhood. Nicole must have felt deep sorrow then and decided to raise Henry alone. I heard that she raised Henry by herself, cherishing him greatly, especially since Henry's grandparents had already passed away. Even now, Nicole supposedly calls Henry several times a week. I can somewhat understand her feelings. Any parent would worry about their precious child. But that doesn't justify her attitude towards Ashley. When asked if she did something wrong, Ashley could only say she didn't know. With marriage talks with Henry underway, it seems Ashley wants to avoid worsening her relationship with Nicole. Ashley said this, looking very downhearted. It was the first time I saw Ashley so troubled. I told her that perhaps she should talk it over with Henry. Though Ashley's voice was somber, sharing her concerns seemed to lighten her heart. She said she would discuss it thoroughly with Henry and try to persuade Nicole to understand. Despite some apprehension, I decided to leave it to Ashley. Then, 9 months later, I received a call from Ashley, her voice bright.
Henry proposed to me.
She reported her engagement with a joy I hadn't heard before. While I was delighted with the sudden engagement news, Ashley's previous concerns came to mind. When Ashley happily shared her engagement news, I asked about Nicole. Then, Ashley's previously bright voice turned a bit somber as she began to speak. Apparently, Nicole, who dotes on Henry, had not approved of the marriage. Moreover, the engagement announcement seemed to have made Nicole colder towards Ashley. It seemed Nicole felt like Ashley was taking Henry away from her, and despite Henry's attempts to persuade her, it didn't go well. After much deliberation, they decided to go ahead with the marriage despite Nicole's objections. On one hand, I was upset at Nicole for treating Ashley harshly. On the other hand, I felt helpless about not being able to say anything strong to the people Ashley would be dealing with. Reluctantly, I told Ashley, "Let me know immediately if anything happens." They had decided on their new home and were proceeding with the moving arrangements. I wholeheartedly congratulated Ashley and Henry. But then, not long after, Ashley and Henry came to our house saying they had something to discuss.
What's happened?
Kevin asked anxiously. The two exchanged glances and then said happily,
I'm going to be a mom.
She showed us an ultrasound photo with a happy expression. There, a still tiny baby was pictured. We were overjoyed, especially Kevin, who was more excited than anyone about the grandchild's arrival.
I can't believe we're going to have a grandchild. There's nothing happier than this. You're exaggerating. I haven't even fully realized it yet.
Ashley, blushing with a shy SA, made me suddenly think of something. It was about Nicole. If she hadn't even accepted their marriage, what would she say upon finding out about the pregnancy? When I asked Ashley about it, Henry, with a stern look, said,
I'll try to convince Mom again.
Apparently, Nicole became even harsher towards Ashley after their marriage, and when they announced the pregnancy, she yelled,
Why would you have a child so quickly? That's strange, isn't it? You must have lured Henry into marrying you.
Nicole accused. Ashley and Henry insisted that wasn't true, but Nicole wouldn't listen, Ashley said sadly. Henry told Nicole there was no need to be so angry, but she initially wouldn't accept it. However, worried that the constant complaints would burden pregnant Ashley, Henry persuaded Nicole several times, explaining the accusations were baseless. For now, Nicole seems somewhat convinced, but she still harshly blames Ashley. I can't believe this is happening to you guys. But remember, we are here for you both. Give birth to your child in peace.
That's right. There's nothing happier than Ashley being pregnant.
Encouraged by our strong words, Ashley and Henry nodded with teary eyes. I had heard about mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflicts, but never imagined Ashley would experience it. And it was unforgivable that Nicole complained for such strange reasons. But Ashley's trials didn't end there. Since becoming pregnant, Ashley's morning sickness worsened, and she started missing work. I visited Ashley several times and cooked meals for her. But her health didn't improve, and she ended up bedridden, according to Henry. I kept worrying and sending meals to Henry, but he refused to accept more, not wanting to worry us. Amid growing anxiety, several months after the pregnancy announcement, I received an early morning call. It was from Ashley, and I rushed to answer, asking,
What's wrong, Ashley?
Through sobs, Ashley's voice came through. Confused, I listened as she quietly said, I want to go back home to give birth. Feeling uneasy, I asked why. It seemed Nicole was the cause. Nicole had been calling daily, demanding to divorce her son. She yelled not to have the child, pushing Ashley to her mental limit. Why didn't you talk to us sooner? I asked Ashley, who sobbed through her explanation. It appears she had been pretending to be upbeat not to worry us. Tears overflowed from my eyes too. I woke Kevin to explain the situation. Realizing the gravity, Kevin sprang up, insisting we pick up Ashley immediately. After telling Ashley our plan, she responded in a weak voice. Henry, too, was exhausted. I suggested they both stay with us for a while. However, while Ashley was willing to accept, Henry rejected the proposal. Henry explained that due to work commitments, he simply couldn't leave. Reluctantly, it was decided that Ashley would return to our home, and about an hour after the call, I went to pick her up. Upon arrival at home, there was Ashley, visibly exhausted. She seemed to be mentally drained, clearly not her usual self. I instinctively hugged Ashley tightly. I'm sorry, I can't get away from work. If anything happens, please call me right away. I'll come as soon as I can, Henry said, hugging Ashley with a look of concern. Seeing how much they loved each other made my heart ache. To think they were being put through so much distress. I felt a surge of anger towards Nicole. From that day on, Ashley began living with us, away from Henry. Compared to her previous state, she seemed to be slowly recovering. Though there were times she wasn't feeling well, seeing Ashley become a bit brighter was reassuring. A few months after moving in with us, Ashley safely gave birth to the child. Kevin and I were moved to tears with joy at the birth of our adorable grandchild. It reminds me of when Ashley was born. It's a moment too precious to forget, such a joyful event. Kevin and I looked at each other, reminiscing about the time when Ashley was born. Ashley, blushing with embarrassment, immediately called Henry. She had informed Henry when she went into labor, but he couldn't make it in time. Henry was unable to attend the birth, but Ashley joyfully informed him of their child's arrival. However, Ashley's expression darkened after making the call. She looked dejected after hanging up. What's wrong? I asked Ashley. He can't come right away. But he said he's sending a gift, something I like, she said. Initially, Ashley was downcast, but she soon regained some of her spirits. It seems Henry was concerned about not being able to attend the birth and wanted to cheer Ashley up. He apologetically mentioned sending Ashley her favorite things. However, we suddenly felt something off about Henry. Even if he was busy with work, he should have made it a priority to be there for the birth of his child. This prioritization of work over childbirth made us slightly feel distrustful towards Henry. But since Ashley trusts him, we decided not to dwell on it further. Then, on the day Ashley returned from the hospital after giving birth, a gift from Henry arrived. Though they had been in touch, Ashley seemed sad about not being able to see Henry. Ashley was very pleased to receive the package. Let's all enjoy this. I wonder what he sent. Knowing Henry, it must be something I love, Ashley said, opening the package with visible happiness. However, her joy quickly faded as her complexion turned pale upon opening it. As Ashley became suddenly quiet, we too looked inside the package. Inside was just a dirty rag. And within, a note simply stating, "Don't come back." What is this? What does it mean?
What's this? Did Henry really send us this?
Contrary to our shock, Kevin, visibly angry, threw the rag to the floor. It must be some kind of mistake. Surely, this is some kind of mistake. This doesn't make sense. Should we contact Henry? I gently asked Ashley, who had become silent and looked down, saying nothing more. However, Ashley remained silent, her face downturned, not speaking anymore. We focused on comforting Ashley, who was deeply distressed. To think she had to face this treatment after just giving birth. We couldn't bear to see Ashley so worn out. But then, an unexpected event occurred. Kevin came home from work earlier than usual, with a somewhat relieved look on his face. Before I could ask what happened, Kevin began to speak. I contacted Nicole. It seems that was meant as a warning. I was shocked at Kevin's words, uttered with a heavy sigh. It turns out the perpetrator of the package was not Henry, but Nicole. Kevin had tried to reach out to Henry on the day the package arrived, but got no response. With no other choice, Kevin contacted Nicole and confronted her. He couldn't stand to see Ashley sad any longer. Nicole confessed to taking a package meant for Ashley from busy Henry, swapping it with a dirty rag, and sending it. While shocked at such an unexpected revelation, I couldn't understand why she would do such a thing. However, Kevin's expression remained stern.
Nicole was trying to protect Ashley by being harsh on her all this time.
Upon being pressed, Nicole confessed everything to Kevin. Nicole confessed that she had once heard from a drunken Henry about embezzling company funds. With the issue unresolved and Ashley's marriage to Henry hastily decided, Nicole panicked. To prevent Ashley from getting involved in any trouble, Nicole admitted to being harsh towards her. It was Nicole's way of advising Ashley to stay away from Henry. The shock left us speechless. But we couldn't let Ashley continue to be saddened by this. We wanted to push for a divorce immediately, but we knew neither Ashley nor Henry would agree. So, we took immediate action. First, we contacted Nicole. She seemed surprised to hear from us, but quickly apologized.
I was wrong. I'm truly sorry for everything.
While it was difficult to forgive Nicole for her weak apology to Ashley, we requested her cooperation to get Henry to confess. Nicole hesitated for a moment, stumbling over her words, but then agreed, acknowledging that it couldn't be overlooked. We decided to tell a grieving Ashley everything about Henry. We shared everything Nicole had told us, explaining that it was all done to protect Ashley. Initially, Ashley seemed incredulous, but she appeared to trust our words eventually. Shortly after giving birth, we finally received a call from Henry, who had not once called or shown concern for Ashley since the birth. There was no way Kevin and I could forgive that. We were infuriated by the fact that he hadn't attended the birth nor had he made any contact after the birth.
Is Ashley okay? Now that work has calmed down, I should be able to stay in touch, Henry said, seemingly unconcerned.
Anger welled up at Henry's indifferent demeanor as he spoke. I briefly updated him on Ashley's condition and then quickly ended the call. To think Henry had deceived Ashley, who was raising a child on her own, and embezzled company money. We could no longer forgive Henry. A few days later, Nicole provided us with a recording of Henry's confession. His voice on the recording showed no remorse, speaking as if the matter was already resolved. He seemed utterly unconcerned about embezzling company funds and even mocked the deception of Ashley. It's all over now, isn't it? I've got a beautiful woman and have played the part of a good husband, he said. To think he thought of Ashley in such a way. With all the evidence compiled, I handed it over to Ashley. Ashley seemed resolved, initially saddened but unwilling to let her child be saddened, and sent the recording to Henry's company. It was 3 days later when Henry, unaware of these events, contacted Ashley. Suddenly, Ashley's mobile phone began to ring. There were multiple incoming calls from Henry. Ashley, now a protective mother, answered the phone with a strong stance.
What? I'm busy, you know. What's this about? Explain yourself. Why do you know about the embezzlement?
Henry's voice roared through the phone. Kevin frowned at Henry's blatant anger. Henry's voice grew even louder.
I'll be fired if this continues. Can't you, as my wife, speak to the company for me?
It appears the company's president had seen the evidence Ashley sent, leading to Henry's dismissal and a demand for compensation. Moreover, the company threatened to report him to the police if he didn't pay the damages. Henry must have contacted Ashley in a panic. Ashley sighed heavily at Henry's selfishness.
That's your own fault, isn't it? I don't know anything about that.
She responded dismissively. Henry began to show his irritation. The sound of something being thrown could be heard over the phone.
What's with that attitude? Acting all high and mighty when you don't even earn money.
I was stunned to hear such unprecedented shouts through the phone. To think such a person had been close to Ashley. But then, Kevin, who was right beside me, became furious and yelled back at Henry on the phone.
Enough is enough. Don't drag Ashley into this. This is all you're doing, yet you blame others.
It was rare for the usually de-mannered Kevin to get angry. But his voice was filled with a cold fury I had never heard before. Henry's voice trembled in response. Well, there's a reason for this. It's not all my fault, you see. Kevin raised his voice even more.
You've caused enough trouble for the company that's been good to you. Pay the compensation or I'll report you to the police myself.
Henry, perhaps panicked by Kevin's threat, promised to pay the compensation. But that was not enough to appease Kevin.
I can't leave Ashley with a criminal like you. We'll be pursuing a divorce.
Henry seemed not to expect such a reaction and tried to calm the situation with a but the phone was hung up before he could finish.
Wait a minute.
Later, Henry promised to pay the compensation in one lump sum to his company. Thanks to this, the matter didn't escalate to police involvement, and he was only dismissed from his company. Subsequently, Ashley and Henry quickly proceeded with their divorce. After that, there was no further contact from Henry. Following this incident, Nicole reflected on her son's failings and lack of integrity, offering us an apology. We then ceased all contact with Nicole and had no further dealings with her. Meanwhile, Ashley, along with Kevin and I, began to raise her child together. An old friend of Ashley's from the neighborhood returned to the area, and they started seeing each other frequently, along with the child. They spent holidays together like a real fae, and he seemed to cherish Ashley deeply. He always seems to be there for Ashley, actively participating in parenting. He has come to greet Kevin and I several times, and he's a very pleasant person. The child seems to have grown fond of him too, and judging by their interactions, remarriage might be happening soon. Seeing Ashley and our grandchild sing happily together has given us great peace of mind. From now on, this car belongs to me and her. Despite being caught cheating, husband Andy spoke with pride. It was utterly baffling to see him like that. How could he be so cheerful, act so superior towards me? It felt like we were living in completely different worlds. But if he's happy to take the car, I couldn't be happier. The monthly loan is $3,000, though. He'll figure something out. Okay, I wonder if he's okay with the $3,000 loan. When I accepted Andy's request with a nod, he started smiling in a way I had never seen before. My name is Samantha. I'm 38 and work at a design company. I thought I was living a happy life without any particular worries in my job or personal life. But occasionally, I find myself pondering one thing. When will I ever get married? At nearly 40, I don't even have a boyfriend, let alone married. My dating experience is limited. Before I knew it, all my friends were married, leaving me feeling left behind. There were times I thought about giving up on marriage, but seeing my friends happy made me dream about it again. My life changed significantly one day after work. Feeling good, I decided to go for a drink alone at a pub. Entering a bar, I ordered some drinks and appetizers. While waiting and looking at my phone, I noticed a man approaching me. "Lady, are you alone?" A man came over and peered at my face. This was the beginning of my encounter with Andy, who would later become my husband. "Well, yes, I'm alone."
Really? Then let's drink together. Shall we?
Without waiting for my response, he sat down in front of me and tilted his glass. Wait a minute.
Come on, it'll be just for a bit.
Just for a bit, then. With that thought, I accepted him. But I didn't have the energy to talk to anyone else at that day. As I looked down, he started talking on his own. Eventually, we exchanged numbers and parted ways. I thought our relationship was over, but 2 months after we first met, I and Andy had become close, meeting frequently. As we exchanged contacts, I found myself gradually drawn to him. Talking to him, my feelings would calm without notice. I sincerely wanted to talk more. When he said he wanted to see me, I genuinely felt happy. Surprisingly, I never imagined I could harbor such feelings, leaving me astonished. And then, about 6 months after we first met, we became a couple. After 3 years of dating, we got married. I never thought I could get married, so when he proposed, it felt like a dream. But I realized it was the peak of happiness only after everything ended. After marriage, he changed drastically. It made me wonder if his personality during our dating was a lie. About a month into our life together, he suddenly became distant. No matter what I asked, whether he would be late coming home, or what he wanted for dinner, he would just respond with, yeah. A disinterested reply. Hey, what's wrong lately? You seem down. Leave me alone. It's none of your business. I wondered if he had come to dislike me. Seeing his attitude worsen day by day, my anxiety grew. Still, I was happy he came home. He would eat the dinner I made, and we still shared a bedroom. Somewhere in my mind, I believed he still had feelings for me. Maybe his current cold and harsh attitude was because he was tired. That's what I thought. However, a month into our diverging lives, the reasons of overtime and drinking parties made he come home late increasingly, and I found myself spending more time alone at home. I wasn't alone from morning to evening due to work, but coming home to no one was indescribably empty. Alone again today. Looking at his messages, he said he had overtime again today. I was still thankful for the messages, but the increase in overtime and drinking parties right after getting married bothered me. Maybe I did something wrong. Disillusioned, perhaps he intentionally started avoiding coming home. I quietly placed the shopping bag down as I received a message from him. Gradually, he stopped coming home daily. We rented the slightly expensive rental property to start our new life together. Since he stopped coming home, it had become a place where I spent my time alone, feeling lonely. We were supposed to be married, so why did it come to this? As I thought about him, I continued to eat dinner alone. Andy, when he occasionally came home, was always in a bad mood. Dinner's ready, you'll eat, right? I'll start making it now. I prepared dinner as usual and served it to him. However, after tasting a bite of the side dish, he stopped eating. What's wrong? Not hungry? I've thought this before, but the food you make is really terrible. I was stunned by the words said to me for the first time. Until now, he had said it was delicious and had seconds many times. He used to say that he wanted to eat my dishes rather than fine dining restaurants, even a special day like an anniversary. But why suddenly? Sorry. I didn't know it was bad. I'll clean it up. Don't touch it. He glared at me sharply and started eating again. But he didn't look like he was enjoying it, his face always crumpled. He started to complain about the cleaning and laundry I did. The coffee cups weren't aligned, a picture hanging was tilted. Even a single hair on the floor was enough for him to complain. I work too, so some imperfections should be expected. I began to wonder if it's normal to fuss over such minor things. Of course, I've mentioned several times that I can't do housework perfectly because of work. But he wouldn't budge. In the end, it always concluded, just shut up and do as I say. With him yelling. Sigh. The stress piled up each time I interacted with him. I started to doubt whether marrying him was the right decision. Various emotions swirled, and I even considered divorce. But the fact that I got married at this age, and thinking about the hassle of divorce proceedings, I couldn't bring myself to act. I thought I just had to endure it. Such thoughts had developed over time. But before we got married, I made a significant purchase. It was a luxury car from a well-known brand. Of course, I couldn't pay in full, so I took out a loan. I wasn't particularly into cars, but there was one model I had always dreamed of. I was happy to have it as an adult, and it motivated me at work. I drove it to work and received compliments from car-loving colleagues. Initially, Andy praised the car.
That's amazing. Good for you.
That's what he said. But as his attitude changed, he began using the car without asking. It was inconvenient because I needed the car for work and shopping. It would have been acceptable if he didn't have a car, but he did. Yet, he preferred mine, which bothered me. Because of this, I had to use the bus for work and walk for shopping. I've addressed this issue with him.
Hey, could you stop using my car without asking? I need it too.
Come on, it doesn't matter.
It does matter to me.
Well, I don't care about you.
You're managing with the bus, right?
That's fine. I have reasons to use a car. Don't butt in.
Even though you have your own car?
Your car is better. Just let me do it. He never listened and would end the conversation unilaterally. The bus fare added up, and walking home from the bus stop was exhausting after a long day at work. Shopping became more frequent since I couldn't carry heavy bags without the car, going from once a week to every other day. I considered borrowing his car. I asked, knowing it was a long shot.
That car is mine. There's no way you could handle it. Keep your jokes to a limit.
I thought having two cars was unnecessary, but held back from saying anything to avoid angering him. But I couldn't just use it without permission. Slight change in the car's parking spot, seat, or steering wheel position would surely infuriate him. That's how he is, so it would be troublesome either way. If I were younger, I might have argued. But I no longer have the energy for that. Andy continued to not come home. He claimed he wasn't drinking because he was driving, but I noticed the scent of a perfume I didn't recognize. It wasn't long before I started suspecting he was having an affair. I had a hunch since the increase in his overtime and drinking outings. But I had neither solid evidence nor the money to hire a detective. I silently acknowledged his infidelity. He probably thinks I'm too dumb to notice his infidelity, believing he can do whatever because I'll just go along with anything. That must be what he's thinking. The marriage I had imagined was far too different from reality. I dreamed of a warmer, kinder relationship where we cared for each other, going on little trips on weekends, enjoying tourist spots. I dreamed of such a family. I thought I could achieve that with Andy, but it was impossible. It feels like this will be my life forever. I sighed and began preparing dinner for one. But then, one day, something happened that changed everything. It was on a day I came home late from overtime. I usually let Andy know when I'll be working late. I did that day too, but I finished earlier than expected and came home. No reply from him. Probably, he wouldn't be home again today. Feeling down, I walked home, but something was different when I arrived. My car was there. Usually, he used to use my car, so only his car was supposed to be parked. It was unusual. Thinking this, I went to enter the house. But then I saw it. The car was slightly shaking. I should have just been inside the house, but I approached the car out of curiosity. I could hear voices inside. Andy and a woman's voice. I moved closer to hear the conversation. "Do you love me, Belle?"
Yes. I do.
The woman's name seemed to be Belle. Listening in, I heard a conversation I had expected but wished not to hear. "I want a divorce soon. I want to marry Belle."
I'm happy. How have things been with your wife lately?
"We don't talk. I don't want to. Why did I even marry her? I'm always with Belle, so there's no real conversation, right?
That makes sense.
I felt ridiculed. My heart ached, and I felt indescribably sad. I didn't want to hear any more. I quietly stood up and was about to enter the house when my bag hit the car and made a noise. Too late, I realized my mistake. Andy peeked out from the driver's seat, seeing me.
Ah. You. Why are you here? You let your wife hear this. This is the worst.
Andy got out and confronted me.
You said you had overtime today, right? Why are you back so early? Overtime means later, right? Did you lie to me?
I didn't lie. I really had overtime. But it seems like, whenever I say I have overtime, you do this? I hoped he would falter at my accusation, but having been caught with Belle, he seemed resigned.
Yeah. So what? Is it so bad?
It is bad. We're married, you know. What you're doing is cheating. And, how dare you use my car to see another woman?
So what? I'm using it now.
Andy showed no remorse. Then he said something astonishing.
This car is now ours.
I was speechless. My saying my car probably prompted his bold statement. But then, something inside me broke. I'd gladly hand over the car. Including its loan. Okay, the loan is $3,000 a month though, hope that's okay. I was paying a $3,000 monthly loan. It was a bit of a stretch, but I thought I could manage with my current income. Paying the loan for the car which he was using seemed absurd. But you'll have to pay the loan.
What? Why? You keep paying it.
Why don't you want to pay? Can't afford it? With your own car and rent, you can't, can you? Provoking him, he became even angrier.
What do you mean I can't afford it? Fine, I'll pay.
He was probably underestimating the amount because I had been paying it. Later, I transferred the loan and ownership of the car to Andy. During the loan process, I was handed a document detailing the loan by the agent, but there was no particular surprise at the amount mentioned. Whether Andy could really afford the $3,000 or had not thoroughly reviewed the document was unclear. He seemed solely focused on finishing the procedure quickly. After the procedure was completed, the process moved on to divorce. This time, due to infidelity, I hired the lawyer and chose a collaborative divorce. I told the lawyer about submitting the dashcam footage from the day the affair was discovered, seeking divorce and compensation. The lawyer gladly took on the case, and after weeks of preparation, the day to settle things with Andy finally arrived. Andy was visibly angry, and Belle was sitting next to him, looking defiant. Despite being told multiple times that hiring a lawyer was overkill, I couldn't disagree more. As the discussion progressed, it was revealed how they met and who Belle was in the first place. Apparently, she is the daughter of an executive at the company where Andy works. She also worked in the same company, same department, and they were acquainted. Of course, Andy knew she was the executive's daughter when they became involved. While he was at fault for initiating, she, knowing he was married and still engaging, was also to blame. I demanded a divorce and compensation from Andy. He said, perhaps out of stubbornness.
Compensation. Divorce. Do as you like. I can pay whatever compensation you want.
However, Belle seemed desperate not to have Andy pay the compensation.
If you pays the compensation, it'll reduce the money I can spend.
What a way of thinking. It seemed she was planning to marry Andy after our divorce. Are you okay with your family and company finding out about this?
Huh? Do whatever you want.
Belle must think my words are merely a threat. Well, if she says to do as I please, then so be it. Since Andy and I both intended to divorce, it was finalized that day. Andy agreed to pay the compensation, and we dissolved the marriage. Of course, Andy and Belle's relationship was later exposed to her company. After the divorce, I moved to a house near my workplace and continued to live comfortably. No need to accommodate anyone. No need to worry about the car loan. What a wonderful life. I wonder if I could have continued this lifestyle if I hadn't been married. I must admit, I've regretted it at times. Perhaps because I now have more financial freedom, coworkers have mentioned that I look healthier. I plan to live quietly on my own, with the compensation and my income. I won't marry again. From now on, I will live a life of my own. That's what I've decided. However, about 3 months after the divorce, suddenly, I received a call from Andy. What could he possibly want now? Though I found it annoying, I answered the phone. Hello, yes?
Hey! It's not hello! What's going on? What's this about a red envelope?
A red envelope? Perhaps it was a reminder or a demand notice. Calm down. What do you want?
Like I said, what's this about the red envelope? When I opened it, it said I need to pay for the car loan. And, wait, were you paying $3,000 a month? I didn't know about that.
Not know? I should have mentioned the amount when we transferred the loan and ownership. It's strange you didn't know. What? You didn't look at the amount because I was paying it effortlessly?
You can't expect me to have thought it was $3,000. Hey! Can't you change it back so you're paying it now?
Such a convenient man. After all, Andy would be the one using the car, even if I paid for it. And now that we're divorced, I shouldn't have to listen to him. It's impossible. Remember, you were the one who started saying the car was yours in the first place? Do you really think you can come now and demand I pay for the car, expecting it to be that easy?
Don't say that. We were married, right? Even though we're divorced, we were in love, weren't we? Can't you help me out when I'm in trouble?
In love. Help out in trouble. What is he talking about? I understand we were married, hence in love. But I've been through a lot because of Andy. And now, asking for help just because he's in trouble is too convenient. After living however you wanted, coming to me, now a stranger since we're divorced, for help is too convenient, isn't it? Now that the reminder has arrived, you better figure out how to pay it soon.
Figure it out. That's impossible.
No, don't start with that now. You were the one who said you'd pay my car loan in a fit of bravado, remember? Maybe you should learn to take responsibility for your words? That's that.
Hey!
Andy was making a fuss on the other end, but I had nothing more to say to him. I hung up without a second thought, ignoring him. The phone rang about 10 more times after that, but of course, I didn't answer. After leaving my phone aside, he seemed to give up as it eventually stopped ringing, with no further calls thereafter. Half a year later, I was still living comfortably by myself. Thanks to moving closer to work, the commute was incredibly easy. Having more personal time and finding a new hobby of going to art galleries was a joy. On such a pleasant day off, relaxing on the sofa, my mobile phone rang. Looking at the caller ID, Andy's name was displayed. Why was he calling again, I wondered. Tentatively, I answered the phone, and he began speaking in a tone as if his previous bravado was a lie. Samantha. It's me. Andy. What's going on? Despite his apparent weakness, I couldn't coddle him. I asked what he wanted with a tone of detachment. The compensation. I can't pay it anymore. Please, give me a break. Excuse me? Give you a break? His plea irritated me, but I was curious about what had happened, so I listened. Apparently, he had been hiding it out of pride, but after our divorce, he had to leave his job. The reason was his indecent act with Belle, the executive's daughter. It seems he was pushed to resign voluntarily for disrupting the company's order. Belle had dumped him as well. Even though he tried to find a new job, he struggled, surviving on part-time jobs. However, that kind of life didn't last long. Now he has sold both cars and moved out of his rental, returning to his parents' home. He probably thought this would make his life a bit easier. However, a few weeks after moving back home, his mother's health deteriorated, requiring care. With his father being elderly, Andy had no choice but to take on the caregiving duties while also working. Moreover, just because he sold the cars doesn't mean he's free from paying for them. The luxury car loans, the compensation to me. Andy is evidently struggling. Come on, please. I'm begging you. Heck, I'd even consider getting back together if it'd make things easier for you. What do you say? Where exactly would I find it easier? Without much thought, getting back with Andy now would mean taking on the responsibilities of his parents' care, the loan payments, and other living expenses. He would likely quit his job and leave all the housework to me, as before. Life was hard enough when we were together. Jumping back into an even more difficult situation is unthinkable. I've said something similar before, but you truly only think about yourself. You probably just want to live in my house and have an easy life, right? That's not it. I can't believe that. Do you have any idea how much trouble you've caused me? Caring for parents is tough, you say? Forced to quit your job? Dumped by your girlfriend? All of that wouldn't have happened if you hadn't cheated, right? Andy fell silent. But I continued to press him. I wonder why I ever married someone like you. I'd be angry with my past self if I could. Don't marry Andy, you won't be happy, and you're still talking about getting back together? That's a bit crazy. If you were truly remorseful, such words wouldn't come to you. So, I expect you to continue paying the compensation. Please. Begging someone you once looked down on must be humiliating. No matter how much you beg, I won't listen. So, don't contact me ever again. Hey! Samantha! I hung up the phone. After that, Andy seemed to have given up, as I received no further contact from him. No messages, nothing. The desperation was clear from that call, but listening to his condescending tone, I wondered if he still thought he wasn't at fault, pondering why this was happening to him. Well, the compensation has continued to be deposited after that last call, so he must be managing somehow. Half a year after Andy's last attempt to contact me, I continue to live a comfortable life on my own. I've kept up with my new hobby of visiting art museums. My room is now filled with art books and postcards purchased from museum shops. Lately, I've been thinking about visiting art museums abroad. There's a lot I ponder about married life, and even if I were to be reborn, I doubt I'd want to marry. Honestly, I see no good in getting married. For now, I'm just thankful for this comfortable life I can enjoy on my own.
What happened? Are you okay?
I stopped by my son and his wife's house to check on my 3-year-old grandchild. What I saw was my grandchild chained up in the room, looking lethargic and semi-conscious. How terrible. Furious, I called the police, and they arrived in less than 5 minutes. However, I was the one put in handcuffs by the officer who said, "You're under arrest."
There must be some mistake. I'm the one who called.
Despite my protests, they wouldn't listen and took me away in a police car. However, I later managed to turn the tables due to certain events. And I vowed to seek revenge against the person who did such a horrible thing to my grandchild. I'm Colette, 63 years old. I've been living alone since my husband passed away 3 years ago. My son, Tyrone, married Lizzie 5 years ago, and they lived an hour's drive away from our house. About half a year ago, Tyrone started working away from home, and I hadn't seen my granddaughter Monica since then. Wondering how they were doing, I messaged Lizzie, and she replied the next day. "Monica has been wanting to see you. Why don't you come over?" I was having tea with a friend near my son's house and replied, "I'll be there in about an hour, looking forward to it and buying a gift for my grandchild." But when I arrived at my son's house at the agreed time, there was no response to the doorbell. Curious, I tried the doorknob, and it was unlocked. "Lizzie, are you there?" "I'm coming in." I entered hesitantly and found my granddaughter Monica chained up.
Monica! Monica! What happened? Are you okay?
I rushed over and called out to her, but Monica was lethargic and semi-conscious. Moreover, she had lost a lot of weight and had multiple bruises on her skin visible through her tattered clothes.
This is terrible. I need to call the police.
I immediately called the police and arranged for an ambulance as well. To my surprise, the police arrived in less than 5 minutes. As I was surprised by their quick response, I was told you're under arrest and suddenly arrested.
Wait a minute, please. There must be some mistake. I was the one who called.
However, the police said they received a call 10 minutes ago about a mother-in-law making a small child suffer. Who would do such a thing? As I was about to be put into the police car, confused, I saw Lizzie peeking out from behind a utility pole, watching us. And when the paramedics arrived, she suddenly rushed out in a panic.
Monica! What happened? Oh, Lizzie! Can't you prove I'm innocent? Don't be silly. Officer, this person here is the one who did such terrible things to Monica. What are you talking about? I live far away. It's impossible for me to do such a thing.
Lizzie glared at me with sharp eyes, claiming she had been hospitalized due to illness and had left Monica in my care during that time. Lizzie was the one who invited me over. What's going on? Stunned, I was led to the police car, and the ambulance carrying Monica and Lizzie drove off ahead of me. Later, I was placed in a bleak room at the police station and questioned.
Everything Lizzie said was a lie. I don't even understand why I was treated as the culprit.
I asked them to check my mobile phone screen for the message exchange with Lizzie. However, all her replies had been deleted. It seemed Lizzie had deleted the messages she sent to me. Was Lizzie the one who harmed Monica and called the police? That thought crossed my mind, but I had no proof and decided it was best not to speculate. For the time being, I showed them the receipt for the gift I bought for my grandchild, continuing to plead my innocence. But the police didn't believe me. After being released due to insufficient evidence, I went home and called Tyrone. Mom, what's up all of a sudden? Oh, just wondering how you are. I miss seeing Monica. Oh, Monica is full of energy, I hear from Lizzie every day. My son didn't sound like he was lying, which puzzled me, but if I hung up now, I wouldn't be able to protect Monica in the future. I quickly searched for what to say next. Oh, I heard Lizzie was hospitalized because she was feeling unwell? I don't think that's true. She didn't even seem to have a cold. Tyrone was vague even though he was talking about his own wife. Suspecting he was hiding something, I asked if something had happened. Tyrone was silent for a while, then let out a deep sigh. I guess I can't hide it from you, Mom. Actually, we're getting a divorce. What? Why? The classic irreconcilable differences. We've been fighting nonstop since I started working away from home. I was shocked by his unexpected response, and when I heard that Lizzie would get custody of Monica after the divorce, I couldn't help but raise my voice.
That's unacceptable. Absolutely not.
I know it's sad, like losing a grandchild, but it's best for children to be with their mother.
No, you need to listen to me.
I then decided to tell Tyrone everything that happened today. When I told him I was treated as a suspect and taken away by the police, he was shocked and muttered, "What's going on?" It seemed Tyrone was completely unaware of the situation. I thought it might be best to share my concerns. I'm so worried about Monica. I don't want to think this way, but I'm afraid Lizzie might be doing something. Which hospital was Monica taken to? The paramedics told me. I think I'll go check. Unable to hold back any longer while talking to Tyrone, I hung up and immediately jumped into my car. An hour later, I arrived at the hospital and, wearing a large mask to conceal my face, I blended in with the waiting patients and looked around for Monica and Lizzie. I can't find Monica. What should I do? Despite coming this far, I felt helpless and decided to get some fresh air in the backyard, where I heard a familiar voice. There, I saw Lizzie and a doctor speaking quite intimately. It's hilarious how easily the police were fooled by me. I was the one who chained up Monica and didn't feed her. They think the mother-in-law is the culprit, so she won't be getting out of detention for a while. Hearing Lizzie had called the police confirmed my worst fears, and I felt a wave of darkness wash over me. Then, I became furious upon hearing a certain plan she mentioned next. Not today. To avoid suspicion, let's execute the plan in 2 or 3 days. Lizzie's face was colder than I'd ever seen, sending chills down my spine. However, overhearing their conversation allowed me to understand the reasons behind Lizzie's mysterious actions. There's no time to think this over. Determined to protect Monica at all costs, I quickly began to prepare. The next day, I waited in the backyard where Lizzie and the doctor had their secret meeting. Based on their conversation the day before, they always met here to talk. Hiding behind a large tree, they arrived just as I expected. How could Monica regain consciousness? At this rate, it'll be revealed that I'm the one who weakened her. Do something before she gets better. Lizzie was excitedly shouting dangerous things at the top of her lungs. Gently patting her shoulder, the man nodded and said, "Leave it to me. If you succeed, I'll give you half of Monica's life insurance money. Make sure she's dead. After the mother-in-law is in prison, I'll share the property with you too." I clenched my fists, unable to stand the detestable Lizzie. My anger reached its peak, and I couldn't hold back any longer. "I'd like to hear more about what you just said." "What? Colette? Why are you here?" "I was released due to lack of evidence." "Too bad for you." Lizzie, looking awkward, approached me as if nothing had happened. "I'm so relieved. I was worried about you." "What are you talking about? You're the one who called the police." "There's no way that." Before Lizzie could finish, I played the video I had recorded on my mobile phone from their conversation yesterday. The video revealed all their schemes. Lizzie's face went pale upon hearing it. "Not only did you treat Monica horribly, but you also tried to pin the blame on me and take my property after I was sent to prison. You two are devils." Actually, the doctor conspiring with her was Monica's ex-boyfriend. After sending their photo to Tyrone, he told me he recognized the man. "Doctor, how much did you rack up in gambling debts to be so desperate for money? How did you know that?" This was also something I heard from my son. The gambling debts were the reason Lizzie and the man broke up during their relationship. Convinced they were repeating the same mistakes, I coaxed the truth out of them, and it seemed my suspicions were correct. I borrowed $80,000 from Consumer Finance. That's it. If you want to help Monica, Colette, could you pay off the debt instead? You really are something. If we're going to talk about this, let's do it in Monica's hospital room. Agreeing, Lizzie, the doctor, and I headed to Monica's hospital room. Reunited with Monica, who was lying in the hospital bed, I rushed to her side, overwhelmed with joy. "Monica. Monica. It's Grandma. Do you recognize me?" "Yeah. Grandma." I was scared. Monica, holding my hand and hugging me, looked so pitiful. How terrified she must have been. "It's all right now. I'll protect you no matter what." As I gently hugged her and stroked her head, I heard a noise and turned around to see Lizzie locking the door to the hospital room. Oh, what a touching scene. Maybe I should join in, just kidding. Lizzie approached with a sleazy smile, then snatched my mobile phone from my hand and smashed it on the floor. She then took out the SD card, breaking it in half. Evidence destruction complete. This is the end for you, Colette. It's sad to say goodbye, but you'll be joining your husband. What? It's more profitable to take all of your assets than to have you pay off the debt. Lizzie pinned me down in shock, and the doctor, with a sleazy grin, took a syringe out of his pocket. Indeed, this was the terrifying plan I had overheard in the hospital's backyard. Good thing I prepared. "Guess we'll start with the elderly rather than the child," he said, approaching me. "Get your hands off Mom!" Tyrone emerged from under the bed with his smartphone in hand, surprising Lizzie and the doctor.
Why are you here? I got a call from Mom. I've heard everything. You deliberately called us to this room.
Lizzie glared at me bitterly.
By the way, you smashed the SD card, but I have another backup. Oh, and Tyrone is currently recording this exchange on his mobile phone.
Tyrone stood in front of us to protect me and Monica. Lizzie, despite her pale face, seemed not to have given up yet.
Then we'll have to take care of all three of you. Come on, don't just stand there.
Pushed by Lizzie, the sweating doctor slowly approached Tyrone. At that moment, a female voice asked, "What's the matter?" I had secretly pressed the nurse call button, summoning a nurse.
It's an emergency. Bring the keys and security. We'll be killed if you don't hurry.
What? The nurse exclaimed loudly. They seemed to be making a phone call, forgetting to hang up the nurse call. The panicked doctor tried to leave the room but couldn't walk well due to trembling knees.
Please hurry and help us.
As I shouted louder, the door unlocked and security guards and nurses rushed into the room. After quickly explaining the situation, security detained Lizzie and the doctor.
He tried to attack me with that syringe in his pocket. Please check its contents.
The security confiscated the syringe with suspicious liquid, and the doctor tried to deflect blame, saying, "It's not my fault. She seduced me into it."
The evidence on the video will show who's at fault.
Let the police decide.
Lizzie, there's no need for discussion. We're getting a divorce. I'll take care of Monica. Wait. Don't abandon me. I'll break up with my ex-boyfriend. Please forgive me.
She clung to Tyrone with tears streaming down her face, but Tyrone shook her off. Then, she turned to me and offered a profound apology.
Colette, please stop the police. I won't do anything like this again. You should be grateful you can still eat, even if it's bad food. Experience a bit of the hardship Monica endured, being chained and starved. Look, your ride is here.
Outside the room, the police cars called by the nurses had arrived. I handed over the SD card with the video and the data from Tyrone's mobile phone to the police, and the crestfallen Lizzie and the doctor were taken away. Subsequently, Lizzie and the doctor were imprisoned for conspiring to take Monica's life and for framing me, putting me in danger. Tyrone divorced Lizzie and gained custody of Monica, claiming $30,000 in damages for Monica's emotional distress and for the affair, which he also demanded from the doctor. It was decided that I would take care of Monica for a while. Monica recovered quite well and happily runs around the garden now. We're all looking forward to living together once Tyrone's work assignment ends.
It's better not to go home even after you're discharged.
My 5-year-old daughter, who came to visit me in the hospital, muttered this. I couldn't understand what she was saying and tilted my head in confusion.
Then look at this.
I couldn't stop trembling when I saw the photo that my daughter, who possesses a mysterious power, handed to me. That's because it captured something unbelievable. In that moment, everything came crashing down. And at the same time, a brilliant revenge drama was about to begin. My name is Cheryl. I'm 32 years old. I lived with my husband Marty, who is 3 years older than me, and our 5-year-old daughter. I worked at the same company as Marty and was drawn to his cheerful personality. I thought about quitting when I got pregnant, but after discussing with HR, I changed my mind and returned to work in a different department after maternity leave. Since we were both working, we shared household chores and took care of our daughter together. Our daughter Erica was innocent and cheerful, and she loved her daycare. Erica, who had always been a great helper, took the initiative to help when we were sorting out my parents' house after they passed away 2 years ago. But at that time, Erica was still just a little girl. When she found my dad's Polaroid camera, she became obsessed with it and couldn't focus on anything else. Marty, who was there, said, "Miss Photographer, could you take a picture of me?" Erica got into the spirit and cheerfully said, "Say, cheese." Both of them put off helping, but to me, it was a happy scene. I also have an older sister who is 3 years older than me, and she was a good listener. I confided everything to her, including how I met Marty. Since her daughter was the same age as mine, we visited each other's homes and had a close family relationship. However, things started to change after I turned 30. Marty started coming home late citing work reasons, and he completely stopped helping with household chores. He would go out on weekends, and seeing my daughter look lonely, I pointed this out to Marty one day. Then he yelled, "Why the hell do I, a man, have to do cleaning and stuff? Let me do what I want at least on my days off." Since then, our conversations became less frequent, and our marital relationship wasn't good. Yet, when my sister Chloe came over, Marty's attitude changed completely. "Chloe, welcome. Please stay over tonight." As we saw each other more often, it seemed Marty and Chloe had become close without me knowing, always engrossed in their conversations even when I was around. Around the same time, I was filled with anxiety. One day, when I tried to ride my bicycle, I found the brakes were broken. There are many roads around our house, and it could have led to a serious accident if I hadn't noticed. On another day, it seemed like disasters were just waiting to happen, like the screws on the ladder being loose. Should I talk to Marty about this? But Marty was so distant lately, heading straight to bed as soon as he got home, making it impossible to talk to him about anything. Phew, that was close. But I'm glad I was safe again this time. Actually, there was a secret reason why I had survived numerous life-threatening situations. Amidst these dangerous incidents, my daughter went to stay overnight at my sister's house by herself. As a result, it was just Marty and me, alone as a couple. Feeling uneasy, I busied myself with cleaning, something I usually wouldn't do. Then, Marty slowly approached me. "Since it's just the two of us, how about we go see the night view? You know, the place we used to go to when we were dating." "Eh?" So suddenly. "What's going on?" "Actually, I've been cold to you because I've been busy with work." "I'm sorry." "So, I want to go back to the beginning and repair our relationship." Saying that, Marty hugged me. It was a small hill about a 10-minute drive from our house. It was a hidden spot with a panoramic view of the cityscape, where hardly anyone was around. It was also the place where he asked me out, making it a special memory for me. Marty still cares about me. I'm so relieved. Overwhelmed and teary with happiness, I decided to go see the night view with Marty. After getting ready quickly, I was about to step out of the house. Then, Marty said, "I can't let a lady carry the luggage," and took my bag for me. His gentlemanly behavior made me happy. But little did I know, this action would lead to a tragedy later on. When we arrived at the spot, the attentive care I had just received was no more. Marty said, "I'll go ahead and find the best spot to see the night view," and disappeared into the dark with just a flashlight.
Wait! Don't leave me behind!
I wanted to hurry, but it was pitch dark and I couldn't see anything. I tried to use my cell phone to light up the area, but I had entrusted my bag with the phone in it to Marty. The ground was uneven, and I had to walk carefully step by step to avoid tripping. Suddenly, I felt like someone pushed me, and I lost my balance and fell off a cliff. The next thing I knew, I was in a hospital bed.
I was wondering why I couldn't find you when an ambulance came and there was a big commotion. I got closer and saw you being carried on a stretcher. I was scared to death.
Marty held my hand with tears in his eyes. The nurse said someone happened to pass by and found me lying at the bottom of the cliff, and they called for help. And for some reason, Chloe was there too and came with me in the ambulance. Chloe helped with the hospital arrangements, and she said she'd take care of Erica at her house until you're discharged. Ah. I see. Chloe. Fortunately, there was no serious harm to my life, and I was able to go home 3 days later. And on the day before my discharge, Erica came to visit me, but she seemed anxious. "I'm sorry for worrying you, but I'll be back home tomorrow." I tried to reassure Erica with a cheerful tone, but her expression remained tense. Then, as if making up her mind, Erica nodded and said something shocking. It's better not to go home even after you're discharged. Why? Mom is all better now, as you can see. I didn't understand what Erica was saying and just smiled in response. But Erica, with a serious face, rummaged through her bag and handed me a photo. Mom, look.
Is this real?
I couldn't stop trembling from fear. But this revealed who had been causing me harm all along. I can't forgive them. I trusted them. Anger welled up from the depths of my stomach, and I couldn't hold it in any longer. However, there were still too many uncertainties to corner the perpetrator for sure. So, I sent a message to Marty saying, my hospital stay has been extended by a week. And I informed him that I had been transferred to another hospital due to a lack of beds, and that hospital did not allow visitors. A week later, I returned home. If you had told me the day you were getting discharged, I would have come to pick you up right away. Marty said this with a smile as he returned from work.
Thanks. But I can't get into a car driven by you. After all, you're trying to take my life.
I then showed Marty a photo.
Whoa! What's this? When did?
The photo clearly showed Marty pushing me off the cliff in the dark.
There are no security cameras there, and I even turned off the car's dash cam. How does this exist?
It's no wonder Marty was puzzled. After all, this photo was taken by Erica using my dad's Polaroid camera, a camera that could capture psychic images. Actually, Erica had a mysterious ability to sense danger in advance and capture those moments with my dad's camera. Her power manifested around the same time I started encountering dangerous situations.
Mom, something scary is going to happen, so don't go anywhere.
One day, Erica suddenly handed me a photo. I was safe from the broken bicycle brakes and the loose ladder screws thanks to Erica. However, if this became known to the public, Erica would surely be viewed with suspicion. So, we decided to keep Erica's mysterious power a family secret. I had confided in Chloe, but since Marty and I had stopped talking, I never got the chance to tell him. Erica said she couldn't tell who was behind the first two incidents. But this time, she clearly saw Marty trying to get rid of me.
I have to tell Mom. But I can't get through to her phone. What should I do?
Erica, do you know where you are? Can you see anything around you? After patiently gathering information from Erica, Chloe figured out it was the hill full of memories with Marty I had often talked about. When she rushed there, I was found collapsed at the bottom of the cliff as Erica sensed, already being rescued by a passerby who happened to be there first. Later, while preparing for my hospital stay, Chloe got hold of my dad's Polaroid camera from my house. Erica had captured the scene of Marty's crime and brought it to show me in the hospital.
This is fake. You're trying to frame me. Then how do you explain this, Marty? You brought a young girl from work to our house while I was away.
I played a video on my mobile phone showing Marty and the woman getting cozy.
There's no way an amateur like me could make this video. Isn't it time you admitted it?
I pointed to the hidden camera installed in the room.
How did you manage to do all this while you were in the hospital?
I had lied about my extended hospital stay to gather evidence of Marty's wrongdoing, running around from Chloe's house where I was staying. Initially, I was jealous of Marty and Chloe's relationship. However, it was a misunderstanding. While I don't know about Marty's intentions, Chloe's friendliness towards him was merely out of politeness. Chloe supported me to the fullest in delivering retribution to Marty.
How could you betray me like this?
Now. Have some tea and let's talk this over calmly. He suddenly suggested having tea. But Erica had already psychically captured Marty's actions.
What, did you put something dangerous in it?
I casually pulled out a photo of Marty adding some powdery substance into the cup.
Yikes!
Marty was completely taken aback and shuddered in fear. Confess everything. I pressed, and he began to speak, his voice shaking. According to Marty, he had fallen in love at first sight with a new employee, started dating her, and wanted to marry her. However, he was concerned that she worked at the same place as us. If I divorced Cheryl and remarried soon after, she might get labeled as the bad woman who stole someone's husband, right? That would be too pitiful.
Are you saying you tried to kill me to protect your mistress?
If Cheryl was out of the picture, she wouldn't be looked at strangely, and I wouldn't have to deal with the hassle of a divorce. It was perfect. Marty also confessed to orchestrating the dangerous incidents that had been occurring around me.
You're the worst. Fine, I'll give you what you want and divorce you. But I wonder if you'll be able to be with your mistress. What do you mean?
It seems she wasn't really interested in you. By this time, I had already contacted the mistress and spoken to her. It turns out she was attracted to Marty because he was the husband of the high-achieving Cheryl. She was just basking in the superiority of being pursued by such a man.
So, she wasn't actually in love with me?
Indeed, I was well respected in the company, and the reason I didn't resign was that the upper management went to great lengths to retain me. The mistress agreed to pay a settlement and promised to resign without seeing Marty again. Faced with the sudden breakup and the realization that she never loved him, Marty was tearful. Also, this incident was reported to the company, and I was interviewed by HR. So, I've reported everything that you did to me.
What, really? If you do that, I won't be able to stay at the company. Cheryl, help me. You're the only one who can save me now. The nerve you have to say something like that. We're getting a divorce, and you'll be paying alimony and child support. And prepare yourself, because I'm also going to the police.
I had recorded Marty's confession earlier with a voice recorder. This should be able to prove his wrongdoing. Marty stood there as if his soul had left his body, but I decided to give the final blow. Oh, and there's also this. I took out another photo and held it up in front of Marty. It depicted Marty as a homeless man in the future. Of course, this was also psychically captured by Erica.
I don't want this. Absolutely not. Please. Cheryl, forgive me.
Marty clung to me, sobbing and repeatedly apologizing. However, what he had done was absolutely unforgivable.
I never want to see your face again. Don't ever show up in front of me. You deserve to go to hell. Damn it.
While looking down coldly at Marty, who had collapsed in tears, I called the police. The officers arrived and took Marty away. After being interrogated, Marty confessed to everything and was charged with some crime. The company took the incident seriously, and Marty was terminated. I got divorced, demanded $30,000 in settlement money from Marty in the divorce court, and $500 a month for child support, and the mistress agreed to pay me $10,000. With no income, Marty borrowed money from shady lenders to pay me, living in fear of debt collectors and sleeping in parks. It turned out just like Erica's psychic photo had predicted. However, Erica's mysterious ability disappeared after a while. I don't know what it was, but I think it's for the best. I was promoted at my current job, with a significant salary increase. Thanks to that, Erica and I are now enjoying our days happily together. Do you really have a lot of savings? Those words from my husband Weston gave me a bad feeling. I have a separate savings account, in addition to our joint account. When I was working, we used to communicate how much we were saving from time to time. But since I retired, our living expenses were covered by the pension, so I didn't bother telling him about my savings. I decided to use this money in case one of us got sick or if there was an absolute need. Yet recently, Weston seems obsessed with money. He's been wastefully spending on solo trips and flamboyant, expensive clothes he would never wear. I already know why his spending has become so reckless. Clenching my fists in frustration, I gritted my teeth. No, $450,000. It's all in the safe. As soon as I said that, Weston's face blatantly lit up. That's all I wanted to know. Without saying much more, he left, looking pleased. He's probably planning to take my money. All this time, he'd say things like, "A woman like you working hard is creepy." Or, "Hand over all the money you earn to me." After all, he criticized me on a whim. In the end, he turns to someone else's money when he's insecure about his future. How dare he leech off my money while he's been demeaned me? I won't let that happen. A sense of revenge started to grow within me. I'm Evelyn. Born into a family of doctors, I was expected to become one just like my parents. Luckily, I loved studying, and apart from the pressure from my parents, I had a desire to save lives as a doctor. I couldn't forget the kind female doctor who treated me when I was hospitalized with pneumonia as a child, and I always admired her. After graduating from medical school, I proudly became an internist. My parents, also internists, would have preferred me to be a more active surgeon. But in the end, I think it was good that I was able to take over their hospital. Being able to face patients at an easy pace must have suited my nature. Thanks to this, our hospital thrived, and a few years later, I got married. That's when I married Weston. It wasn't a love marriage, but rather through an introduction by acquaintances, so our relationship was neither particularly close nor bad. However, Weston, a bossy husband, really hated the idea of his wife working. Probably it because he worked in a factory and was concerned about earning less than me. Thus, his male pride made him act like that. Life with Weston, who believed women should stay home and not work, was painful. Does it really matter who earns more in a marriage? Of course, I rebelled, ignoring such views and continuing my duty as a doctor. You dare defy me, although you are a woman? Whenever we argued, "You're a woman," Weston always said. It was always like that. Don't slack off on housework because you're a woman, don't work all the time because you're a woman, don't earn more than me because you're a woman. Looking back, I think Weston felt inferior to me from that time. It seemed that he oppressed me condescendingly to relieve stress. Had I been a weaker woman, I surely would have been dominated by Weston. Being strong-willed, I constantly fought with him. However, our relationship, which was developing cracks, began to heal with the birth of our son Austin 2 years into our marriage. Children are a source of joy, and they were exactly that for us. Weston, by doting on the kids, could forget his hatred towards me, allowing me to work guilt-free. But when Austin expressed his desire to become a doctor, Weston's hostility turned towards me again. He wants to be a doctor like you? I'm worried about his future. A hospital run by a woman is bound to be no good. Hey, why would you say that? I'm just working for the family. Do you enjoy always tarnishing my honor? Is earning money that great? Would you be happy if I ran out of money and we couldn't make ends meet? Such arguments were common. I thought everything he worried about was ridiculous. Money shouldn't matter whether earned by a man or woman, and I couldn't understand his pride in wanting to dominate. However, he did love Austin, so that was a relief. I was fine with being the only one disliked by him. Austin grew into a fine young man and went to medical school. After graduation, he worked at a university hospital, fulfilling his dream of becoming a doctor. And after working there for over a decade, he took over the hospital when I retired. I'm going to do my best as an internist at Mom's hospital. Austin, you don't have to push yourself. Do what you love most. I've always wanted to be like Mom. I'm actually really happy to take over the hospital. I was so moved by his words that I felt tears of joy. At the same time, I noticed that Weston's look towards me and Austin had shifted from hostility to resentment. For Weston, respect should be for the father, and the mother just a supporting role. Honestly, I considered divorce. But bringing it up could infuriate Weston, and more importantly, I couldn't do it thinking of Austin. So, we entered our old age with an awkward relationship. Life alone with Weston was quieter than I expected. We hardly talked or went out together. Just watching TV in the same space or eating the meals I cooked. Compared to when I was juggling work, housework, and childcare, it was relatively peaceful. No more nagging about how women are or how much I earn. Since Austin took over the hospital, Weston stopped snapping at me, and considering how I was always belittled before. Because you're a woman. These times were quite peaceful. With Austin grown up and me retired, we finally had a trouble-free daily life. But then the unexpected happened. Weston started to leave the house frequently. At first, I thought he was just going for walks during the day, but it seemed not to be the case. He'd been gone from morning to evening, sometimes not returning home for a whole day. I didn't want to suspect a man in his 70s, but I had a terrible feeling. And not just that, unbelievable amounts of money were being withdrawn from our joint account. It wasn't through credit card use, so I had no idea what for. We get our pensions, but withdrawing nearly $1,000 every month would make life unsustainable. I confronted Weston.
Hey, why are you withdrawing so much money? This account is for rent and living expenses, something we made together. I'm in trouble if you use it selfishly.
Faced with my accusations, he laughed mockingly, as if exasperated.
A little bit should be fine, right?
We have plenty.
What if we run out when we need it? Are you going to cover the money you spent?
Shut up. That's why I hate you.
Acting all high and mighty, although you're a woman.
After a long time, I heard it again. You're a woman. That line. I've always just let it slide without talking back, but his words are terrible. If I ever said, because you're a man, he would forget his own words and definitely get angry.
It's not okay at all. It's not just your money. You're supposed to have your own personal savings account.
When I said this firmly, he was at a loss for words. We each have our own savings accounts. The joint account is for necessary expenses like living costs and rent, while the savings accounts are for personal savings. We made this arrangement due to Weston's whim of not wanting to be upset by my income. So, the rule is, if we want something, we use our own savings account. He, withdrawing money from the joint account, is breaking the rules.
Listen, if you withdraw a large sum again, I won't put my pension into the joint account anymore. What? Are you even a wife?
Weston was furious as if I were being unreasonable, but I didn't change my stance. Why should I allow him to freely use the money meant for our married life? Normally, you'd consult beforehand or replenish if you spend extra. Nevertheless, I couldn't ignore his reckless spending. I decided to secretly investigate where the money was going. One day, I followed him when he went out and saw something shocking. There, in the city, waiting for someone, was him, approached by a woman. She looked young, both in appearance and dress. After talking for a while, the two of them started walking through the busy streets, arm in arm. I couldn't believe it but continued to follow them, knowing I might never learn the truth if I lost sight of them. They entered an inconspicuous cafe in an alley.
Hey Weston, for my birthday, I want the new bag from that brand.
Sure. I'll buy anything for you, Kelly.
Yay! You're so reliable, Weston.
In the noisy cafe, I could hear a young, cute voice contrasting Weston's gruff one. The woman sitting across from Weston looked to be in her 30s. From their conversation, they seemed to be in a close relationship.
Hey, aren't you going to leave your wife yet? I'm waiting for you to get a divorce, you know?
Sorry about that. She doesn't want to split up, and it's troubling me.
Your wife is a doctor, right? And she's got a tough personality?
That's right. Always looking down on and disrespecting her husband, the worst kind of woman. They laughed and joked about me, their crude laughter filling the air. Strangely enough, it seemed they planned to live together. He was timing his divorce with me for that purpose. It made no sense. We were already in our 70s, and he was planning to be with such a young girl. Was Weston using our living expenses to provide for this woman? Normally, one would realize they're being scammed, but his judgment seemed clouded. It's improbable for such a young woman to fall for a man decades older. Besides, my dad's still in the retirement home, and considering his future care, I need money. My wife is a doctor with more than enough money. I'll divorce to be with you after taking that money.
That will shock your wife so much that she'll be sick in bed.
That woman? As long as I get the money, I don't care what happens to her. Listening to their conversation, an immense rage boiled inside me. Since then, I started gathering evidence, but the mistreatment towards me didn't stop there. Do you really have a large sum in your savings? One day, out of the blue, Weston asked me. I had a very bad feeling about it. I have savings, but it's something I've accumulated on my own, so I never bothered telling him after I retired. As he wants to know my savings, it probably means he intends to take them. Without changing my expression, I answered. $450,000. It's all in the safe. As soon as I said that, his face visibly brightened. That's all I wanted to know. Without saying much, he left, looking pleased. I was sure of it. He is only interested in my money. After all this time, he's been saying things like, "A woman working hard is creepy," or, "All the money earned should go to the husband." He's been said whatever he wants. In the end, he relies on someone else's money when he's unsure about his future. He belittles his wife and then tries to take her money? I won't let that happen. I felt a sense of revenge growing inside me. The next day, when I went to the living room, there was a piece of paper on the table. It was a divorce application. And when I went to the room with the safe, the black, cold safe was gone. I'm surprised he managed to move such a heavy object on his own. As expected, he stole the safe and left the divorce papers, then left the house. Weston called me on the day he stole the safe. I ignored it as it was too bothersome to deal with, but there were hundreds of calls in half a day, showing his obsession. However, I won't answer his calls. At least not now. In the meantime, I decided to tell Austin everything that happened. I thought he would be shocked to know his real father had an affair and ran off with his mother's savings. However, his reaction was more indifferent than I expected. I figured he might do something like that. He's always been desperate to look down on Mom. Austin had noticed our discord since he was young and saw through his twisted pride. He's very wise and intelligent. But if the safe was stolen, isn't Mom's livelihood in danger? That's okay. There was no money in the safe. Yes, the safe Weston ran off with had not a single dollar in it. Instead, I filled it with the results of the infidelity investigation, as much as I could. Photos of the two together, receipts he had left on the table, and more. He must be panicking now, for the money wasn't there, and realized his affair has been discovered. That's why he's been calling persistently. Moreover, my savings account has hardly any savings in it. Thinking that rent and living expenses must not be delayed, I secretly added money to the joint account since the beginning of our marriage. In reality, he often didn't contribute to living expenses and used it for his own pocket money. Because of that, I ended up paying most of the living expenses and even Austin's childcare costs. I couldn't afford to save money. The account created after marriage is subject to property division, but there's hardly anything to split. I have a lot of money saved from before I was married, but that's not subject to property division, so he can't get his hands on it. I saved it for emergencies, but if I'm divorcing him, there's no need to be frugal. So, what will you do now, Mom? If you have nowhere to go, you can come to my apartment. That's okay. I've already moved. Really? Yes. I've already filed for divorce. The day after he left, I moved to an apartment I had arranged beforehand. The house originally belonged to him, so even without savings, selling it would help financially. Mom, if you're getting a divorce, you should consult a lawyer to avoid complications with the property division. I will. I also need to get compensation in the divorce trial. Austin was surprisingly calm, which allowed me to respond firmly. Just knowing he'd support me if needed was empowering. Following Austin's advice, I consulted a lawyer about property division and compensation for the divorce trial. Since the safe was stolen, I was advised to report it to the police, so I decided to file a theft report. Now that it's come to this, I'm determined to thoroughly punish Weston. When I was ready to fight, he unexpectedly showed up at my new apartment. Luckily, I could find it was him through the door. How do you know where I live? What do you want now?
Hey! How dare you deceive me? There wasn't a single dollar in the safe.
Oh, you have the nerve to say that when you committed theft?
And you left the house to move out.
It seemed he had located me using a detective. What a waste of his little money.
And what about those photos? Stop dragging Kelly into this.
I'm the one who got dragged into this. You dared to misuse our living expenses. I'll make sure you pay the compensation in the divorce trial. He gasped in surprise because of my strong stance and the mention of compensation in the divorce trial. Then he suddenly changed his tone, speaking weakly as if pleading. Hey, you haven't filed the divorce papers, right? We're married, let's stop this silly fight. What? I couldn't help but respond with a voice filled with anger. He shrank back as if scared, but I didn't feel a bit sorry for him. This is not silly to me at all. And I've already filed for divorce. We're not a couple anymore. What? How dare you? You're the one who left the divorce papers and left, right? Selling that house should cover the compensation in the divorce trial. If you come to the house again, I'll call the police. After ending the conversation through the door, he lingered outside for a while before leaving pathetically. He stole the safe hoping to become rich. Thinking about how long I've been belittled by someone like him makes me angry again. But I can't lose my composure. My revenge against him is just beginning. The claim for compensation in the divorce trial against him and his mistress was successfully made. The woman quietly paid, but he, perhaps reluctantly, keeps trying to negotiate a reduction. I don't plan to reduce the amount by even $1. Considering everything he's done, the compensation in the divorce trial is small price to pay. Eventually, Weston paid the amount I demanded. He had assets like land and money from property division. That probably all went to the compensation in the divorce trial, but now it doesn't matter to me. It seemed he visited Austin to beg for money but was turned away. I'm cutting ties with Dad. It's embarrassing to have a father who has twisted pride and looks down on others without making any effort himself. He appears to be thoroughly disliked by Austin now. I realized how closely children watch and remember their parents' treatment of their partners. Austin works tirelessly for the hospital and is still single, saying he's too busy enjoying work to find time for romance. I'd like him to find a good wife, but it's not something a parent should interfere with. I just hope he doesn't end up in a loveless life like ours. A few weeks after the divorce, the safe I had reported stolen was found. It had a keypad lock, but it looked like it had been pried open with a crowbar or something. Inside were charred papers, evidence that something had been burned. Probably he had set on fire either to destroy the evidence of his affair or out of sheer anger. The safe is no longer usable, but I don't intend to ask for compensation. It served its purpose by cutting ties with him, and I don't need another one. Since then, he was unceremoniously dumped by his mistress. Apparently, she hadn't expected the claim for compensation in the divorce trial and was furious.
I wasted money because of you.
Blaming him for wasting her money. He seemed serious about remarrying, but the woman was just in it for transactional relationships and never intended to marry. Logically, a marriage between a man in his 70s and a woman in her 30s with a whole future ahead of her is improbable. Occasional dinners and buying her desired gifts don't make a healthy relationship. He must have wanted to satisfy his ego by showering her with gifts to keep her attention. Now, he is working 3 part-time jobs, struggling to make ends meet and pay the compensation from the divorce trial. Apparently, he is all out of money because of the divorce compensation. He's barely making it with property division and the money from his land property. He managed to rent an old apartment but is living without savings or luxuries, and it's taking a toll on him mentally. As for me, I'm enjoying fulfilling days, occasionally dining out with Austin and becoming friends with neighbors. One happy event did occur. Austin, who had been single for a long time, got married. His wife, a nurse around his age, is kind and warm-hearted. She'll be helping with the hospital's management, so I'm sure they will continue to provide caring medical and nursing services. Most importantly, thanks to her, Austin smiles more than ever. I hope they never end up like Weston and me. May they always be happy and supportive of each other. As for myself, still in my 70s, I want to acknowledge, praise, and live my life happily. You know, I remarried a beautiful and young woman unlike you. My ex-husband Duke said to me with a vulgar smile. It's only been a week since our divorce, and he's already remarried. He probably was cheating on me even while we were married. For a while after we got married, Duke and I were a happy couple. We both loved kids and were conscious about having them right from the start of our marriage.
I can't wait to have kids. I want a daughter and a son,
Duke would say excitedly, imagining our future. But we struggled to conceive. Gradually, our relationship soured, and we ended up hating each other and divorced. A week later, I ran into him at a shopping mall, where I went to distract myself. My name is Lynn. A woman in her 30s and a corporate employee. I met Duke, who's 4 years older than me, through friends. And got married 3 years ago. Duke and I both loved kids and wanted to start a family early. I really hope we have kids soon. I'd like a daughter and a son, Duke used to say.
Yeah, I don't mind the gender as long as they're healthy. But I do want more than 2.
I would respond. We happily talked about what our kids might look like, what their personalities would be like, eagerly awaiting their arrival. However, even after 1 year, then 2, we couldn't conceive. During the first year, Duke said,
It didn't work out again. But no rush, we'll be fine.
But after the second year, he started to become bitter.
What, it didn't work out again? Someone I know had a baby just 2 months after getting married. Why can't we have one?
He complained. I don't know what to say. Our relationship deteriorated from that point. Duke's behavior became harsher, and I couldn't handle it alone anymore. I often confided in my best friend Johanna. Johanna always listened seriously to my problems.
I see. Duke really wants a child, so I understand his disappointment. But he should be more considerate of you,
she said sympathetically. I know. He's changed so much. He used to be so kind, I said, reminiscing about the old Duke and sighing deeply. Johanna and I shared our deepest troubles with each other, things we couldn't tell anyone else. Time passed, and we still couldn't have children. Before we knew it, 3 years of marriage had gone by. Realizing that natural conception might be impossible, I decided to suggest fertility treatments to Duke. After dinner and while drinking coffee, I approached Duke.
Hey, Duke. We haven't had a child in 3 years, right? I'm 34 now, so maybe it's time to consider fertility treatments?
Duke's face showed blatant annoyance at my words.
Fertility treatments? Isn't it because you're getting old and decrepit that we can't have kids? If you're gonna do it alone. That's not something you can just say.
I was taken aback by his harsh response and was at a loss for words.
I'm not doing it. There's no way the problem is with me.
Duke spat out those words and immediately left for the bedroom. Left alone, I stood there stunned. Does Duke not want to cooperate at all? I muttered, filled with a mix of emptiness and sadness. With no other choice, I decided to visit a fertility clinic alone. After a thorough examination.
Where's your husband? It's important to have his cooperation. Infertility issues are often on the male side. Make sure he comes with you next time,
the doctor asked. Encouraged by the doctor's words, I tried to discuss fertility treatments with Duke again that night.
Fertility treatments won't work if it's just me. You need to get tested too. Can you please come to the hospital with me? Are you saying it's my fault? It's obviously you, the woman, who's the problem. I have nothing to do with it. I told you to do it alone if you're going to do it. Don't drag me into this.
Duke exploded in anger.
But infertility often lies on the male side. If the doctor said so, it must be true. The doctor also said that the husband needs to cooperate.
Please, Duke, come to the hospital with me. I tried desperately to persuade Duke. Despite his irritation. Fine, I'll go.
Just stop nagging.
Duke eventually agreed, albeit grudgingly. A few days later, I took Duke to the fertility clinic. After his examination, Duke emerged from the testing room looking irritated, his face twisted in frustration. We were waiting in the reception area to hear both my previous results and Duke's recent test. Due to the clinic's busy schedule, we were not called for a while. Being impatient, Duke abruptly stood up and said, "I'm leaving." He ignored my attempts to stop him and left alone. I had no choice but to hear the results alone. Finally called in, the doctor's revelation left me in shock.
I need to tell Duke.
I rushed home, opened the door, and said, "I'm back." I washed my hands and headed to the living room, where an infuriated Duke awaited.
What's wrong? Hey! What are you playing at? I thought infertility testing would be simpler, but why did I have to go through that? It was humiliating.
It seemed Duke was upset about the nature of the male fertility test.
Well, we need to do proper tests to find out why we can't have kids. About the test results.
Duke cut me off mid-sentence, shouting angrily.
This is all because you're old and can't have kids. I can't take this anymore. I'm divorcing you. What are you talking about all of a sudden?
I was shocked by Duke's sudden declaration of divorce and raised my voice in surprise.
I can't live with an infertile old woman anymore.
Fed up with Duke's abusive language and constant belittling about my infertility, I felt my feelings for him cooled in that moment. Fine. Let's divorce.
Ha, I'm glad you agree so easily. Get out, you infertile old woman.
I silently packed my things and left the house. I decided to stay at my parents' house for a while. They welcomed me warmly, which I was very grateful for. I filled out my part of the divorce papers as soon as I got there and sent them to Duke. We had been married for 3 years. Duke was a kind and good husband in the beginning. There were many happy memories. But the Duke I loved was no longer there. Remembering the ugly face of Duke, who insulted and pushed for divorce, filled me with sadness and intense anger. I didn't have any love left for Duke. A week later, I went to a large shopping mall for a change of scenery. That's when I saw a familiar profile. Ugh. And I involuntarily muttered. I tried to leave unnoticed, but Duke saw me.
Isn't that Lynn?
Duke noticed me and called out. I ignored him and started walking away. Wait. He grabbed my arm.
Let go.
Duke looked at me with a vile smile.
Following me? Can't forget about me, huh?
What? His off-base comment left me dumbfounded.
I've remarried a beautiful, young woman. I have no need for an infertile old woman, so disappear.
Duke laughed rudely, looking down on me. The fact that he stopped me just to tell me to disappear infuriated me. It had only been a week since our divorce, but he was already remarried. I realized then that Duke must have been cheating on me. The deterioration of our marriage wasn't just because we couldn't have kids, it was also because of Duke's affair. He must have been confident about divorcing because he had the option of remarrying his mistress. What a terrible man. As I frowned, a coquettish voice caught my attention. Duke, who are you talking to? The voice belonged to a woman with blonde hair, heavy makeup, and revealing clothes. She was also adorned with designer bags and accessories and held shopping bags from brand stores.
Finished shopping? This is my ex-wife. The infamous ex-wife.
The woman looked down on me with a scornful gaze. I recognized her from somewhere. Who was she? I was on the verge of remembering, when Duke triumphantly introduced her. Lynn, let me introduce you.
This is my wife, Pamela. Beautiful and young, right?
Hi, I'm Pamela, Duke's new wife.
25 years old.
At that moment, I couldn't help but burst into laughter. So, it was that Pamela. Finally remembering, I couldn't stop the laughter that welled up inside me. Seeing me laughing uproariously, Pamela and Duke looked at me with puzzled expressions. Still laughing, I told Duke, "I feel sorry for you. I'm busy, so I'm going now, lol." Duke hurriedly tried to stop me as I was about to leave. "Hey! What do you mean you feel sorry for me? Is that your way of admitting defeat?" "Admitting defeat? No way." "Then what is it? Spit it out," Duke asked irritably. "All right, I'll tell you." I turned to Pamela. "I know who you are," I said. "What?" "I don't know a dull, uninteresting, old woman like you," Pamela retorted, looking puzzled. "What a rude thing to say." I asked Pamela coldly. "Do you know a woman named Johanna?" "Johanna? Ah." It seemed she remembered. Pamela's face turned pale. "Johanna? Isn't she Lynn's best friend? What does Pamela have to do with Johanna?" Duke asked anxiously. I declared, "She's the bar employee who tricked Johanna's boyfriend into spending money on her. And she dumped him the moment he ran out of money." "What?" Duke's eyes widened in disbelief. I heard from Johanna that her boyfriend had been deceived and spent money on a bar employee named Pamela. Despite the bar explaining it was just part of the job, he believed they were truly in love and bought her expensive bags and designer watches. Johanna decided she didn't need a man who could be deceived by a bar employee. She had shown me a photo of this woman, Pamela. Johanna's naive boyfriend believed Pamela's seductive words, but Pamela went as far as having physical relationships outside the bar and even checking houses to live after they were married. And there were multiple men she did this to. It wasn't just Johanna's boyfriend. "You seem to have manipulated several men, a trade company executive, a small construction company's CEO, and a county administrator, right? But when they started holding back on spending, you cut ties with them. Duke, aren't you being deceived too? Are you sure you're okay?" "That's a lie. There's no way that's true. You're just making up lies because you're bitter, aren't you? Stop kidding around." Duke was furious, refusing to listen to my warning. "Exactly. I would never do such a thing. I don't even know who Johanna is, and I've never made her boyfriend spend money on me. Everything you're saying is a lie. You're just jealous because I'm beautiful, right?" Pamela confidently lied and shouted back at me. "That's right. Lynn is just jealous of Pamela and making up stories, right? Infertile old hag you are, so ugly. Infertile old hag, that's funny. You're truly pathetic. Go away, you old woman." Taking advantage of my silence, Pamela and Duke unleashed a barrage of insults at me. Finding the situation ridiculous, I said, "You don't have to believe me. I truly don't care about Duke anymore. Anyway, I wish you happiness." And left the scene. From behind me, "It's all lies, right? Pamela, you're not deceiving me, are you?" Followed by Pamela's voice, "Of course, it's a lie. Believe in me. Everything that old woman said was a lie." I heard. A few days later, I met Johanna and told her about the incident. "Pamela remarried Duke. I was shocked when I heard you divorced Duke, but I never imagined he would marry that woman." Johanna was visibly surprised, her eyes and mouth wide open. "Yes, it's true. It's a small world, isn't it?" "Indeed. But Duke, he's going to suffer." Knowing how Duke had treated me, Johanna smiled as if feeling relieved. "I think Duke will end up in a miserable situation. Right now, he's completely infatuated with her." We laughed together. Sometime later, after work, I was about to head home as usual. Suddenly, "Lynn." I heard a listless voice from behind. I was startled and turned around to see Duke standing there. "What do you want? Don't scare me like that. What are you doing here?" "Lend me some money." "What?" Duke looked much thinner than before, almost haggard, with sunken cheeks and eyes. His wrinkled clothes made him appear pitiful. I could guess the situation from his appearance and request. So, you're exhausted in every way because of that Pamela. Exactly. Just like you said. She just milked me for all I had, and the moment my savings ran out, she left me and filed for divorce. Just as I had warned, Pamela had married Duke for his money and left him as soon as it ran out. Foolish. I warned you politely, didn't I? I should have listened carefully to what you said. You know how much I spent on her? She's the worst. Don't you think I'm a victim? I was deceived, I'm the victim here. What? His claim of being a victim was astonishing. It was all his responsibility. Because she stripped me of everything, I can't even pay this month's rent, let alone the utilities. I'm sorry to ask, but can you lend me some money for my living expenses? If this continues, I'll become homeless. Duke's blatant opportunism left me utterly dismayed. Actually, I want to get back together with you, Lynn. Please reconcile with me. I realized your worth after being deceived by Pamela. Marry me again. It's a lifetime request. Marry me again. Duke begged tearfully. I looked at him coldly. Sorry, but I refuse. What? Why? Why? Have you forgotten how you treated me? I don't like you at all anymore. I hate you so much I don't even want to see your face. There's no chance of us getting back together. Duke turned red with rage. How dare you talk to me like that? I'm offering to reconcile with you, an infertile woman. Be grateful. Hearing Duke's words, I laughed. Why are you laughing? I just thought how mistaken you are, LOL. Mistaken? Duke asked, puzzled. The infertility issue wasn't with me, it was with you, Duke. What? Duke was speechless. You left the hospital without hearing the test results. I was going to tell you that night, but you started talking about divorce and never listened. The results showed you have almost no fertility, and natural conception is almost impossible. I, on the other hand, had no issues. That's a lie! It can't be true! There's no way I'm the cause of infertility! It's definitely you! Duke ranted, refusing to believe. I've never been sick, so how can I be infertile? It must be you! If you think it's a lie, go to the hospital and hear it yourself. I replied calmly. Is it true? No, it can't be. I can't be infertile. Duke was in total disarray, sweating profusely. He never thought the issue was with him. So, go and hear it directly from the doctor. If you plan to marry someone else in the future, it's better to know about your body. I said and left. Duke went to the clinic and learned the truth about his infertility. He called me several times, but I ignored them all. He then left voicemails. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Let's start over. Answer the phone. Please. I have no money. I'm in deep debt. Help me, Lynn. I deleted all his messages and blocked his phone number. A few days after blocking him, I was ambushed by Duke in front of my office. Lynn, please. Even if we don't reconcile, just lend me some money. I'm not asking for much, just $10,000. No, even $5,000 will do. Please. We were married once, right? Duke pleaded with deep apologies. Stop this right here. I'm not lending you any money. Go back right now, or I'll call the police. Even as I warned him, Duke persisted. Just lend me the money. So, I really called the police to deal with him. Perhaps the shock of the police being called or the fear of increased patrols deterred him. After that, he never showed up in front of me again. Duke, struggling financially and accumulating more debt, moved to a very old apartment and worked part-time at a grocery store late into the night to make ends meet. However, the strain took its toll, and he started making mistakes continuously at work. Unable to handle his main job while doing a side job, he was looked down upon and felt quite uncomfortable. Meanwhile, I've almost completely moved on from the shock of the divorce and am working energetically every day. I had relied quite a bit on my parents, but now I've moved to an apartment near my company and am enjoying living alone without any concerns. Recently, Johanna and I went on a long-planned trip where I met a man and started dating him. It was a long-distance relationship, but last month he got transferred to a branch near my home. He asked me, "Would you like to get married?" So, it looks like I'm going to be quite busy from now on.